Welcome to the Table Scraps podcast, where Brad and I try to piece together all the parts of our brain that aren't currently occupied by things like work and family and everything else, and string together some cohesive thoughts for your viewing and listening pleasure.
Bobby and I are going to talk about the difference between creator and corporate mindsets. Both of us worked corporate jobs for 5 to 7 years before we started this. We talk about some of the differences and how we made the shift. Hope you enjoy this podcast. I don't know. What are we going to say after that?
I mean, we do hope that they enjoy the podcast.
It's kind of funny that we both wear beanies. But it is like 5 degrees out, so we're in a studio. We're in a studio, a podcast studio.
Oh, yes.
With zero sound treatment.
I mentioned that it was a basement last time. Because it is.
Great.
I'm already thinking about everything I did wrong last time. Just keep my hands right here. Speak more firmly.
Intentional with your words.
Try not to interrupt.
Well, you want to get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. How was your week, Bob?
Fucking shit. I mean, okay. Some of it was really good, and then it turned to shit, but that was just based on the weather, so what are you going to do? I mean, we filmed with Mark Morris for basically 12 hours straight on Thursday, and then Friday I was supposed to fly out to go to a bachelor party for Austin, and that just got absolutely, I don't know, how would you put it, dicked by the weather?
No, I wouldn't put it that way. You put in all the effort you could to get to Grand Rapids.
I really did. I really tried.
But Mark Morris was pretty cool. That was fun.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, that'll be a good video, especially if we get something of him skiing out west. If we make that happen, that'd be pretty cool.
You guys want to go somewhere in Colorado?
Yeah, I figure we can probably just edit a little bit out there, work half days, and then ski for full days.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably take it easy anyway. Still got to get that life.
Mark's not going to.
I got to get that health insurance. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere near Mark. I'm going to kill myself.
Brian.
Yeah, no, you guys can go do your thing. I'll stay at the bottom with the cameras and I'll get some footage. Because, I mean, I would love to go out and see the mountain anyway, but I can't be doing it like I did 2 years ago until I officially have health insurance, because I could have easily broken any one of my bones when we were out there before. So I got to play a little more conservative.
That's fair.
Yeah, meeting him out there would be cool. I agree. It'll be fun. And the trip itself was very successful.
Yep. Yeah, that storm kind of brought in a little cold weather where we're at too. So we got some snow on the ground. Ponds are finally frozen. Got to play some hockey yesterday and today. And that kind of ties into what we're talking about today.
Yeah, flexibility.
Just being able to work at night and use the daylight to go do something. And right now it's playing pond hockey, which is one of my favorite things to do.
Yeah, I got to find my skates. Or I got to buy new ones.
We need you for tomorrow.
Yeah.
4 o'clock. We're going to get the lights up tonight.
Okay.
So today's topic, creator versus corporate mindset. And you and I both know what both of those things are like now, because we both worked in the corporate world I worked in it for 7 years, and I think you were 5.
Close to 6.
So 6 years, Kraft Heinz in Chicago, and I was 7 years at General Motors in Detroit.
Yeah.
So we both know what it's like to do that, and now I've been working in small business for 3 years, and you've been in this world for about a year, we'll call it. And the shift from what it's like going into that office every day and working with corporate-minded people versus working at your own pace with people that are in small businesses, just 2 totally separate things.
I mean, plenty of people dream about it, for sure. And it's just that sometimes. It's just a dream, and then you get into it and you realize that it's not easy by any means, but well worth it, I would say. Just within the last, almost year of doing it, the change in mindset for me has gone from so negative to so positive, while still adding stress of, to your point, working at your own pace that can come at your own detriment, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it can be both good and bad, but either way, even through the bad times, it's very, very constructive. I find it very constructive. I found out a lot more about myself in the last year than I did all 6 of those years. I spent those 6 years kind of just floating by, thinking I knew things maybe, giving advice, but not really taking my own. It's a lot harder to bullshit when you're kind of making it for yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So what do you think are some of the biggest advantages or like positives of having a creator mindset?
For me, I would have defined myself as a creative person.
Like even before corporate?
Yeah. Without really knowing what that meant, I just know that I always wanted to do something creative, and I was finding myself in my free time doing creative things, like trying to learn instruments or even video games to an extent, like depending on what you were playing, like you could still kind of dump some creative energy into it, writing, whatever it was. Transitioning into that being a full-time position, a full-time job, being able to try and harness that is very challenging but very rewarding at the same time. Now it's a matter of trying to keep that creative energy flowing throughout every day, every week, because you can't walk away from it because it's your job. I knew that if I was ever going to find anything that I was going to be successful in, it was going to have to be a little bit more based on me motivating myself to do things that I actually wanted to do, because the money and the promotion just wasn't enough, wasn't doing it.
So do you think that you were just forced into working into the corporate world? Because if you had tendencies of creativity, you would think you would pursue something like music or visual arts or something like that, but I don't think there was ever a question. You were going to get a business degree from Wayne State, and you were going to get a job pertaining to that degree that was going to pay you enough money.
It didn't feel like much of a choice.
I feel like I didn't have that choice.
Yeah, no, and I want to hear your version of that too, because they're probably pretty similar. For me, like there was no question. I was going to college. I was going to get a degree. What it was going to be in was questionable at the time. At that age, though, it's very difficult to understand what you think you might actually want to do. So you go searching for the easiest degree, or the degree that's going to get you a job out of college. And for a lot of people, that's business. That was me after 2 years. I took all my gen eds, and business just sounded broad enough.
Do you remember, like in high school, they would give us those surveys or whatever, and it would tell you how much the job paid?
No. I remember the surveys that would tell you what you should be.
So we did these ones where you would put something in, like you'd fill out a survey, and then it would tell you, like, oh, you should be this. But you could look and see, like, if you're a neurosurgeon, it's going to pay you X amount of dollars. And I just remember looking at that and being like, oh, well, what's the highest one?
Right.
How does it do that?
Yeah, and that's such a terrible way of going about it. Like,
but I feel like we didn't have the right guidance or the opportunity to explore what we wanted to do. Mm-hmm. It was go to college, get a job, pay off your loans, like take the next step in life.
Yeah.
There was never anything that said, what do you enjoy doing and how can you make a job out of that?
Yeah.
Like my dad, he was a pretty good artist, but he was just always told that you'll never make a good living being an artist. Mm-hmm. So he threw that out and he became a physical therapist and had a good life doing that and just did art on the side. But there's plenty of ways that you could use art to make a career out of it. Yeah. And those types of occupations were never really shown as if you could be successful with it. It was like, oh, that's hard to be successful with, so don't try to do that.
You'd have to be really heavily reliant on like natural ability. Like if you're going to be an artist or a musician, you're going to have to be good from the get-go. There's no business. Yeah, there's no business strategy in place. Yeah. And then lo and behold, you could start a business and look at it differently. You don't have to look at it as like, oh, I have to be a creative genius. You can look at it as I'm smart enough to do this. I'm driven enough to do this. I will figure it out. And you can apply yourself the same way you'd apply yourself to any other career.
I think about my 7 years at GM and then my 5 years in college. Think about that as 12 years that I could have applied to this business that I didn't get to start till I was 30. That's crazy.
Yeah. Imagine how much you would know if you were 16 years in, or 15 years
This
in right now.
podcast would be killing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, dude. You would have been like one of the OGs on YouTube.
But I didn't even know that this is something that I wanted to do. Like, it took time and money, which came from getting a college degree and getting a job that wasn't taking over my life. It was good hours, lots of vacation, good pay that enabled me to explore and figure out what it was that I liked doing. So once I figured out, I like flying drones, I like making videos, I had the time to do that after hours and get good at it and then turn it into a business. So I can't say that the college and the job was a waste.
No.
But if I had that, I did have that time in college, and I took tens of thousands of dollars for loans in order to pay for that college. If I would have had that invested into camera equipment, courses, whatever it was, it would be no different than me self-funding it while I was working my corporate job.
Yeah, amazing that you could be faced with tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars in some cases of school debt, college debt, and that is acceptable. But if you were to try to dump that type of money into some other type of creative career that might be outside of college, you would be insane. You would be looked at like you are making a terrible decision.
You would be looked at as if you were insane by people that are used to doing the norm.
Yeah.
If we were surrounded by people that started small businesses or worked in the creative space, they probably wouldn't think anything of it. They would probably commend us for doing that because they wish they would have done it. Just like right now, if I see somebody graduating high school and they don't go to college and they start working in a trade, I'm like, good job.
Yeah.
Good job. That's the right way to go. I was saying the other day to Matt Trulio, I wouldn't pay for my kids to go to college and I wouldn't encourage them to go to college because the value has gone down and the price has gone up.
Yeah,
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to go completely on the other side of what my parents did, which they didn't force me to do anything, but it was like, you're going to go to high school, get good enough grades so you can go to a community college, go there for 2 years, then go to a university, graduate, and get a job. I don't want to go the complete opposite way and say, you're not going to college, like you have to find a trade, but I would prefer they go that route after what I went through.
Yeah, at the very least, you're open to it.
Yeah.
If you get any sort of inkling that that's what they want, you're going to lean into it a little bit, and you'll just do a little bit more to incentivize that, or at least make it easier for them to explore those options.
So let's get into some of the differences and talk about like what it took with the corporate job and the creator job. So the first one I have on here is discipline. When you're working in a corporate setting, they pretty much tell you what you need to do, when you need to be there. You know, it's kind of just all laid out for you. But in the creator space, you have to, at least in our situation, right? You really got to love what you're doing in order to do this.
Yeah.
Because it's like work hours are actual work hours.
Right.
It's not like in the corporate world where you clock 40 or 50 hours, but you're actually working on something for like 20 or 25 hours.
Yeah.
And then you're going for walks or you're taking a 2-hour lunch or whatever you're doing. And we've both been there. We know how it is. Every hour that you work on a project is the only hour that you're clocking.
Yeah, there's no sense in me sitting here for an hour not doing anything.
I'd say just go home.
I might as well be doing something else. I might as well be cleaning my house or something. Like if I'm not feeling motivated right now, go do something and then come back more motivated, because it just doesn't make as much sense to waste that time.
And it should play into your personal life too, where if at work you're utilizing all of your time, you go home, you should have that same mindset. Like, well, what am I doing? Like, okay, I'm gonna work out, or I'm gonna clean the house, or I'm gonna go hang out with friends. Like, I found myself being really intentional outside of work just because that's how I've had to become with work.
Yeah, mentioning earlier that amount that I've learned about myself, that's part of it, is taking lessons from what it means to actually care about my job, which is, this is the first time in a while applying myself in my job, utilizing my time. I'm still, working at it. I'm still trying to get better at it, but I do see it directly related to my personal life as well. So in talking about discipline and self-motivation, I've learned a lot from the way that you operate. but I didn't just have that. Where do you think you got that from? How did you become so disciplined and self-motivated in order to start the business in the first place?
I think naturally I had a lot of self-discipline just from my childhood, playing sports and the way that my dad raised me, just very discipline based. Then I started to use the self journals, which was like a quarterly goal oriented thing. And I've been using those every day for probably 5 years now. And it taught me to have a routine, set goals, and achieve those goals.
Because I see your journal, I see that you have your time planned out. Do you ever find yourself treading water in those times when maybe you have a block of 2 hours to work on a specific video and you can't really zone in, you're having trouble focusing? Because I struggle with that quite a bit.
Fortunately, I don't have any issue with focus or like a lack of focus. So at the beginning of the day, I look at a list and I say, here's all the things that I need to get done this day. And a step back, I do at the beginning of the week, I list out all the stuff I have to do for the week. I don't take it further than that. I look at it 1 week at a time. So I know on Monday I got to get these 5 things done. I block off ample time throughout the day and I just do them. Like I really...
Yeah, just as easy as that.
I've learned to put time in between things and leave a little space because small talk. I know now that when you come over, if you're coming over at 9 o'clock, like I'm not going to block anything off to do from 9 to 10. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of tough for me at first. It's not like we're not doing anything from 9 to 10. It might be some sort of like planning for the week or you have questions on something. But I just kind of know when to space nothing. So I'm putting 5 things in that might take an hour and a half each throughout the day for 8-9 hours or whatever, but then I have like a couple other hours blocked in there. And I've also noticed that if I put a workout in the middle of the day or some sort of activity that gets me up moving, I'm able to focus better after that. So like today, I went and played hockey outside from 12 to 2. But I started work at 5:30 this morning, so I pretty much got a full day in before that. Went and played. I'm sweating, I'm outside, fresh air, sunshine. Come back in here into the basement and sit here and talk to you for an hour, and then do another podcast after this, and then probably go edit the rest of the Sensation Nation episode after that. So it's a full day, but I feel like it's broken up in ways that I'm not just like grinding all day. Like I thoroughly enjoy doing all those things throughout the day.
I could learn a few things about 1, spacing effectively, and 2, spreading things throughout the day to keep myself busy. And I know we've talked about that before. It's easier for me when I have multiple projects to be more flexible with my time because I can bounce between one thing or the other, and it doesn't feel so draining just being locked in editing a single video for 8 hours, let's say. Sometimes, obviously, that's going to happen depending on when a video is due, but having that variety of things to do throughout the day, it definitely helps. But then it's a matter of when I get to that chunk of time that I have reserved for activity A, I better be doing A. One of the things I struggle with is approaching that time and being able to just turn my brain to that only. Like it takes me some time to get motivated and warmed up in whatever it is I'm going to be doing, and then by that point, we're a half hour into that chunk of time. So then I'm spilling over into my next block, and so then by that time the schedule is shot.
The buffer times do help, but I know what you're saying where you have to kind of get into it. Like if you're thinking about editing and you don't want to think about editing, it's going to take you 10-15 minutes in order to open up that project and figure out where you're at. Yeah. But sometimes you feel really motivated and you just get right into it. And that's just like learning how to do that over time. It doesn't happen perfectly for me. There's definitely times where I don't want to do something, but the quicker you just start it, the less time you're going to end up wasting.
I think I need to do a better job of adding small buffers, at least, just so that I don't feel like I am misusing my time. I have that time specifically to get into whatever it is I'm about to open. I just feel like my blocks get kind of melted together pretty easily. And I got to get better at doing what I say I'm going to do within these chunks of time. Because I find most of the time I don't really schedule it. I just make a list and then kind of knock it out throughout the day as I can. So
yeah, that's a good way to let a 1 hour task turn into a 3 hour task.
Yeah.
At least from what I've experienced.
So we talked a little bit about flexibility and how important that is, but you don't get that flexibility without taking a little risk in getting there. So everything that we enjoy about what we do and everything about the company that you started, you had to walk away from a relatively comfortable career, even a comfortable job at Sensation, working with a smaller business. Do you remember what that felt like?
Yeah, it was only a couple years ago, so it's not like it's far out of my memory. But the way that I did it was to mitigate the risk. So instead of going straight from corporate to business owner and from working in IT to making videos, Sensation was the buffer for me. It provided the security of a paycheck every week while I was able to kind of hone in my skills on making videos, which I did almost every day at that job. So being there for 2 years, I was able to get my skills to a place that I thought were good enough to do this on my own. And I was able to understand small business, which operates completely different than the corporate world. So I kind of buffered it with Sensation, not really intentionally. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go work at Sensation so that I can get these skills and then start my own business. But it just happened naturally.
Do you remember when you started shifting into that mindset to think I could do this on my own for myself?
It wasn't even my idea. Joe Sheldonbrand was the one that was like, you would be better off doing Scrapyard on your own. The opportunity to become an owner at Sensation wasn't going to be as quick as I wanted it to be. Not that I needed that at Sensation right away, but I wanted to just get into something where I was going to reap the rewards for all of my work.
Yeah, after working for a giant company for so long.
Yeah. I went from my last year at GM, I worked on a project the entire year and had it canceled at the end and it never saw the light of day, to working at Sensation where I was making people's lives better at that company. And the work that I was doing was actually selling boats. Like I could see that, to working in my own business to where every single move that I make, I feel. And I think I like this the best out of all of it.
Well, I'm glad that you decided to bring me along with you, because the fulfillment that I get in creating something and being able to look at it at the end of the day, a project where there is an absolute endpoint for that project, and that's when that video is done, and you can walk away from it and you can say, I did that, watch it, don't watch it, whatever, I like it. I didn't get that at Craft. I mean, you could finish a contract, but then that contract, it was signed and you had to manage it for 3 years, and then you had to re-sign the contract afterwards. So there wasn't that feeling of completeness. I didn't get that gratification, and I think that I longed for that without really knowing what that was. So it's definitely been a lot better. Another topic that you had outlined for us to talk about was a success ceiling, and to be honest with you, I don't know what that is. So if you could just explain that to me, what you mean by that.
When you're in the corporate world, your success is capped at how quickly you can move up the ladder. You can only make so much money based on your level. You can only move up so many levels so often. It's like a time-based thing. With being in a small business in the creator space, we don't have levels and we don't have salary caps. All we have is the work that we do and wherever it takes us. So there is no ceiling in my mind for where we're at right now. We could hire a bunch of people and make a bunch of money, or we could just get way better at you and I doing what we're doing right now and charge a lot more money. But either way, we could make as much money as we want, and we could work as little as we want. Like there is no cap to that.
Right. Getting better, you can't stop getting better in what we do. If I look at these directors of these movies that I've been watching, my entire life, there's so much ground between where I'm at and doing something like that. And that's not to say I'll ever get to that point, and I'm okay with that. But to have that much space between me and what I consider the best of the best, there's just so much room for growth, and there's so much to learn.
Yeah, it's crazy because it's so subjective.
Yeah, that's the creative part of it.
Right.
Is that we can change. There's no rules. We can just do whatever we want, and like not having those rules makes it a lot bigger and a lot scarier. But that's also really exciting.
Well, I would say that there are quite a few differences between creator and corporate mindset. We hit on a few of them. What do you got? Any final thoughts on the two?
Personally, I've noticed a lot of positives come out of it for me, whether it's my mood, my overall satisfaction with my life. I had a lot of things to enjoy and to love about my life, but my career was not one of them before. My ability to enjoy everything that I do now is just a completely different feeling. So it just, my life feels a little bit more all-encompassing now, and it all works together, whereas before it was kind of like my life was just battling this one part of my life, which was my career and my lack of fulfillment in it. So getting into that creator mindset is just applying to everything now, and I keep an open mind about anything. I'm constantly learning. It made me realize I really don't know anything about, one, the job, or two, even myself to an extent. And I'm learning a lot more now than I ever was. So, final thoughts? A few thumbs up.
Yeah. Me too. I'm very happy with where we're at. I'm happy to have you working here too. We got some cool projects that push us. We motivate each other and ourselves. And it's exciting to see where this is going to go. I hope this podcast, we continue to do this. This is really enjoyable. I didn't really know how this was going to go. We're going to make more content of our own and try to diversify our business quite a bit. So we got some fun things to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I have one question before we wrap. Is that camera still on?
Yeah, it should be for 8 more minutes.
Okay.
Unless you didn't start it.
Don't say that. No, I definitely started it. What's the biggest difference that this has all made in your life? I mean, obviously there's a ton of different differences. There's a bunch of differences. There's a bunch of differences that have come with kind of upending how you used to operate, the job that you had, and moving into all of this. For me, like I said, it's my ability to enjoy my life as a whole. I've noticed a significant change in. Is there anything in your life that you can tie directly to this change in career?
The biggest thing that has been a change since working at Scrapyard full time has been that I've gotten a lot more free time, which kind of sounds counterintuitive, but I worked essentially 2 jobs while I was ending my time at GM and while I was at Sensation. So I was working like 80, 90 hours a week. And now that Scrapyard exists and this is my sole focus, I'm able to work 40 to 50 hours a week and do things in the afternoon and evenings. Or like we talked about, play hockey in the middle of the day. That didn't exist for a period of 4 years. It was just grind, you know? So I found a lot more balance now, and I've really enjoyed that, and I'm sure Katie's enjoyed that, and my family and friends. So that's probably the biggest difference.
Well, I appreciate you putting all those hours in so that I could just comfortably walk in here and work a smooth 40.
Yeah.